The rain had already soaked through Daniel Carter's jacket when the black luxury car rolled to a helpless stop right in front of his rundown garage, steam rising from the hood like a wounded animal, and in that single moment, with his hands already numb from the cold and his stomach aching with hunger, Daniel had no idea that this breakdown would quietly shatter everything he thought he knew about survival, pride, and the quiet power of kindness. Before the story truly unfolds, take a moment right now and show some love to this channel. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the idea that small moments can change lives forever, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Your support keeps stories like this alive. Daniel Carter was a single father living on the thin edge between dignity and desperation. His garage sat at the corner of a forgotten street, the paint peeling, the sign barely hanging on, but inside it held everything he had left of his old life. Years ago, Daniel had been a certified mechanic with a stable job, a small home, and a family that felt complete. Then came the accident that took his wife on a rainy night much like this one, leaving him alone with a 6-year-old son named Ethan and a silence that never quite went away. Bills piled up, his employer downsized, and before Daniel knew it, he was fixing cars wherever he could, turning his father's old garage into a lifeline that barely kept the lights on. That morning, Daniel had skipped breakfast so Ethan could eat before school. By evening, the hunger had grown into something sharp and dizzying. The sandwich wrapped in paper sitting on the workbench was meant to be his dinner after closing, bought with the last few coins in his pocket. He had promised Ethan they would make pancakes on the weekend, even though he wasn't sure how he would afford the ingredients. Life had become a constant calculation of sacrifice, one small joy traded for another necessity. The woman who stepped out of the broken-down car did not look like someone whose life ever paused for inconvenience. Her coat was elegant, her posture confident despite the rain, and there was a quiet authority in the way she surveyed the garage. Her name was Victoria Reynolds, though Daniel didn't know it yet. To the world, she was the CEO of one of the fastest-growing tech companies in the country, a woman who commanded boardrooms and made decisions that shifted markets. But in that moment, standing under a leaking awning with rain soaking her shoes, she was simply someone stranded, frustrated, and unexpectedly vulnerable. Daniel wiped his hands on a rag and approached the car, exhaustion tugging at his shoulders. He could see the problem almost immediately. A cracked hose, an overheated engine, something he could fix quickly if he had the right part. Victoria watched him work, noticing the way he moved with quiet precision, the kind that comes from years of practice and necessity. When he explained the issue, he did so simply, without embellishment, and mentioned the cost of the replacement part with an apologetic shrug, already expecting her to turn away and call for a tow. Instead, she hesitated. She checked her phone, frowned at the signal, and looked back at Daniel. She told him she had left her wallet at the office in the rush of a long day filled with meetings and deadlines. The admission seemed to surprise even her. She asked if there was any way he could help her get the car running again, promising to return later with payment. Daniel thought of Ethan's small hands holding his lunchbox that morning, of the sandwich waiting on the bench, of the way hunger had become a familiar companion. He also thought of the countless times strangers had looked past him, unwilling to trust, unwilling to care. He nodded slowly and told her he could manage a temporary fix, something that would get her home safely. When Victoria asked what he wanted in return, Daniel glanced at the sandwich, then back at her, feeling a flush of embarrassment. He said, almost as an afterthought, that if she didn't mind, he could really use that sandwich right now. The words felt heavy in the air, but they were honest. Victoria didn't laugh or recoil. She studied his face, noticing the lines of fatigue, the quiet pride, the restraint. She handed him the sandwich without a word. Daniel ate slowly, savoring every bite as if it were a feast, while rain tapped softly against the roof. He worked efficiently, hands steady despite the cold, and within minutes, the car sputtered back to life. Victoria thanked him, her voice softer now, and drove away into the night. Daniel stood there watching the taillights disappear, unaware that something far larger than gratitude had just been set in motion. That night, as Daniel tucked Ethan into bed, he told him about the fancy car and the sandwich, leaving out the hunger, the fear, the quiet humiliation. Ethan listened with wide eyes and asked if the lady was nice. Daniel smiled and said yes, she was. Days passed, and life returned to its familiar rhythm of scraping by. Daniel fixed cars, negotiated prices, and stretched every dollar. Then, one morning, a sleek black SUV pulled up outside the garage. Daniel wiped grease from his hands as Victoria Reynolds stepped out, this time with purpose rather than desperation. She wasn't alone. 2 other people followed her, their expressions curious and attentive. Victoria walked through the garage slowly, taking in every detail. The cracked concrete floor, the aging tools, the framed photo of Daniel and Ethan taped to the wall. She asked him about his work, his training, his family. Daniel answered cautiously, unsure why a woman like her would be interested in his story. He didn't know that after driving away that rainy night, Victoria had sat in her car long after reaching home, the taste of guilt and admiration lingering in equal measure. For years, she had been surrounded by numbers, strategies, and ambition, yet it was a hungry man asking for a sandwich who had shaken her more than any failed deal. Victoria explained that her company was launching a new initiative focused on community investment and sustainable growth, and she wanted someone who understood real work, real struggle. She offered Daniel a partnership he never could have imagined. Funding to renovate the garage, training programs for young mechanics from disadvantaged backgrounds, and a steady contract maintaining company vehicles. She didn't frame it as charity. She framed it as trust. Daniel felt the world tilt beneath his feet. Suspicion wrestled with hope, fear with possibility. He thought of Ethan, of stability, of dignity restored. He agreed, his voice steady even as his hands trembled. The transformation didn't happen overnight, but it was profound. The garage was repaired, repainted, reborn. New tools gleamed under bright lights. Young apprentices filled the space with laughter and learning. Daniel became not just a mechanic, but a mentor, a leader. He earned enough to move Ethan into a safer home, to buy groceries without counting coins, to make pancakes every weekend just as he had promised. Victoria visited often, sometimes watching quietly as Daniel worked, other times talking with the apprentices. She never spoke about the sandwich, but the memory lived between them like a shared secret. In Daniel, she saw a reminder of everything she had once believed before success hardened her edges. In Victoria, Daniel saw proof that power didn't have to erase compassion. Years later, Daniel stood at the opening of a second training garage, watching Ethan, now taller and more confident, help a younger student tighten a bolt. The rain began to fall again, gentle this time, and Daniel felt a swell of gratitude so deep it almost hurt. His life had changed not because of luck or charity, but because 2 people had met in a moment of need and chosen kindness over convenience. If this story has touched your heart even a little, if it reminded you that compassion still matters in a world that often rushes past it, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to the channel. Your engagement helps keep stories like this alive and reaching those who need them most. Please comment below and tell us what part of this story moved you the most or reminded you of your own life. Daniel often thought back to that rainy evening, to the hunger, the sandwich, the quiet decision to help without expectation. He realized that kindness rarely announces itself with grandeur. Sometimes, it arrives wrapped in paper, shared in silence, and it changes everything forever.